Good morning, everybody. I'm going to present to you a manifesto I've been working on for a couple months. I actually dropped the full manifesto this morning on Twitter, so it's called a Heat Punks Manifesto, and it builds off of what Trevor was talking about earlier this morning, just before me, and how hash rate heating will hyper decentralize Bitcoin mining, and that heat from these mining rigs is a product, not a problem. So who the hell am I? My name's Tyler Stevens. I'm an engineer, thermal guy, was focused on that, education in mechanical engineering, briefly worked in the aerospace industry. That didn't last long with me at a defense contractor as I became a Bitcoin psychopath. So quickly left that role in January of this year, and I've been focused on all things heat, pleb mining, building space heaters, things like that, learning everything I can about mining and hash rate. I'm also an educator. I'm actually working on a book on this topic, a Bitcoin mining heat reuse book that will come out early 2025. And I'm a community leader. I'm actually a co-founder and CEO of The Space, which is a member-run Bitcoin Citadel community hub. And it actually opens on Tuesday in Denver, Colorado. We're going to have our own little physical hub for Bitcoiners. So pretty involved, enjoying everything I'm working on. And yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to make a bunch of claims here. That's the whole point of a manifesto, right? And the first claim shouldn't be foreign to any of you in the room. Energy powers prosperity. I'm sure many of you have seen this chart on Twitter. It's a pretty popular one, this linear trend line, how there's no such thing as a rich country that consumes little amounts of energy, right? So in the top right, we have Western nations, United States, Norway, Japan, and in the bottom left, there's third world countries, Africa, the Middle East, and you can see a direct correlation where the amount of energy consumed per citizen is linked to how wealthy they are per citizen. So remember, when someone tells you to consume less energy, they're telling you be poor. That's not good. So energy consumption is essential. It's required for a modern way of life, from fire to being warm to cooking food and nutrients to charging your phone so you can be on Twitter or mining Bitcoin. And it's not immoral, right? The way I like to frame this is my engineer brain. Every single energy transfer, be it combustion from gasoline in your car to get here, or the solar cells on the roof of your house, or a Bitcoin miner, nothing is perfectly efficient, nothing. And so heat is always released. There's always heat. Nothing's 100% exactly efficient. So if nothing's perfectly efficient and wasted heat is always released, then who the hell is to say what's immoral and what's not? Who gets to dictate that? Who's the arbiter of that? Technically, everything is slightly wasteful. So, which is it? And through that lens, you have the right to energy freedom. You should be able to decide what is worthwhile, what is worth consuming energy for in your life. That's a personal decision. Obviously, you don't want it to infringe on other people's rights to life, liberty, and private property. But if you want to use energy to mine Bitcoin, you should have the full authority to do so. But how I think this ties to heating is that Bitcoin is a new form of energy consumption. It's this whole new industry. Came out in 2009. Proof of work consensus method, proof of work mining method. Excuse me. But I also like to think of it as a new form of heat generation, right? So just a very simple flow chart here. Bitcoin's the incentive. We want ethical money, neutral, decentralized, available to anyone. It's secured by proof of work, which I actually denoted here as secured by force, proof of force. And the reason I say that, I don't think enough people realize, in physics, work actually means force times distance. It's to apply a force, newtons, over a distance, meters, right? So it's force times distance. And at the electrical scale, that is a charge flowing through an electric field over a distance on a transistor, right? And so it's quite literally secured by a force fighting against a resistance. That's what makes it tangible, tied to the real world. So whenever anyone tells you Bitcoin's digital, it's not real, that's not true. It's literally secured by force, just like pushing a rock up a hill. And the reason we're doing this is we want sats, right? There's an economic link there. We want the Satoshis. Right now, all the guys in the other room, Trevor mentioned it, heat is a byproduct. It's being wasted. All these air-cooled machines, just throwing it up. It's a lot of energy just not going to use. That model's worked pretty well thus far. There's over 600 exahash on the network. That's that incentive model. So I want Bitcoin, I waste the heat, that's fine. This is how much it's brought online. But little teaser, the amount of energy used for heating is much larger than the amount of energy used for Bitcoin mining. And so how much exahash could come online if some percentage of heating systems were powered by Bitcoin mining hash rate? So I'm thinking about this through a reversed model. I think about heat over sats, heat being the primary product, Bitcoin being the secondary subsidy. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin miners always convert their electricity into heat 100% of the time. Every single watt of electricity is converted into heat. Only sometimes do they win the little micro lottery and get some Bitcoin in return. So technically speaking, they're more heaters than they are miners, in my opinion. So this is the old way of thinking about it. Electricity goes into the circuit. We're targeting Bitcoin circled there on the right, dumping some heat out at the bottom. But instead, we can just use electricity for electric resistive heating and have Bitcoin as a subsidized reward. So going through that flow chart again, I want heat. That's my product. I need heat. Some target application, my home, my water heater, a business that uses it in high demand, right? I'm subsidized by sats. So the reason someone might be inclined to choose this type of heating system over another is, oh, this one actually pays me. There's an economic incentive there. There's the electric cost. That's the physical cost that links us back to the real world. That's the same. But what I want to point out is I actually think this is good for Bitcoin as well. It's not just a selfish incentive model where it's like I can save 20%, like Trevor said on my heating bill. He's actually doing good for the network, and we're going to dive into that. Here's a little bit of info that I found. So around half of the energy used annually on the planet is for heat. Half of that is industrial heat. So that's high grade heat, typically above 100 degrees Celsius. That's the boiling point of water and many other fluids. It's used in turbines and work applications, steam, etc. That's not in the realm of Bitcoin mining devices currently with their temperature outputs, but in this comfort section, they actually fit quite nicely. That's things like your water tank, your pool, your hot tub, heating your apartment, large zones, things of that nature. You know, if only a small percentage of these comfort heating market share is filled by hash rate heating, I believe that will be a substantial amount of extra hash rate added to the network. So this is a symbiotic relationship, what I'm describing here. Miners, just to, give something to the big guys, they could sell the heat. We've seen this in Finland with the Marathon project. If you're close enough in jurisdiction to a large heat consumer, you can actually offload and sell and monetize your heat in large quantities, provided you have a large consumer nearby. And for these guys, it helps them get another revenue stream to their P&L. And I think it makes them more stable going into the future, right? They're less reliant on hash price because they have this other income stream that is completely unlinked to the Bitcoin price, the transaction fees, or the difficulty. It's just, I found a customer, they're paying for heat, we sell it for X amount. But at the same time, for the smaller guys, the heaters are getting sats, and mining rewards monetize electric heating systems. There are plenty of people where I live in Colorado, up in rural 10,000 feet. They don't have natural gas lines drilled. They have space heaters, or they have propane heaters that literally cost more per kilowatt than an electric resistive heater. Add Bitcoin on top, you've got quite a competitive cost performance there for Bitcoin powered heating systems. And if we go a layer deeper, for mining benefits heating, for Bitcoin heating systems to exist, if I were to overhaul my house or my business or whatever it is, I pretty much hope that Bitcoin sticks around and I'm not wrong and it doesn't disappear in 5 years. Then my heating system would be a waste. That would be a bummer. I don't think this is a concern many of us have, but I'm trying to highlight that there's a symbiotic relationship here as well, because for mining heating systems to exist, you need the Bitcoin network to exist. But for the Bitcoin network to exist, you need hash rate to be physically and digitally decentralized in large quantities. That makes it robust and strong, right? And so heating systems powered by hash rate, heat is required, heat energy all over the planet. That by itself will hyper decentralize hash rate. It's a beneficial relationship to both parties, good for the network and for the consumer. And so I think hash rate will drive the narrative. Hash rate heat, excuse me, will drive the narrative in short order. Trevor alluded to this. Shout out to Trevor. Keep doing that. But there's three main value proposition categories that I like to think through. There's the economic incentive to do this, the utilitarian benefit, and then there's the ideological for the Bitcoin psychopaths out there who will do it even if it loses them money. First, there's the heat cost savings. I described a scenario of someone in high altitude rural Colorado that can literally save money on their heating bills by implementing this system. Then there's the miner stability, back to the bigger guys. If you're nearby, maybe you have immersion or hydro, it's quite challenging with air, but you can transfer that heat energy over quite substantial distances in large quantities without much loss. And you can sell that, monetize it to have a more stable business model to your larger mining operation. And I put increased efficiency here because if you think about it, you're kind of getting two bangs for $1, a double spend, I like to call it. You're getting two things out of each kilowatt hour of energy. You're putting a kilowatt hour of energy towards mining, but you're also putting a kilowatt hour of energy towards heating. So you're more efficient and conscientious of your overall energy consumption. You're getting more. From a utilitarian perspective, there's the global heat demand. That's just showing the total addressable market. I believe there's a huge potential for hash rate heating systems to infiltrate, even if it's a small percentage of heating systems, comfort heat in businesses, commercial industrial operations around the globe. That will equate to a much larger amount of hash rate than people realize. It's much larger than the network currently exists at. And the reason they do this is because they want to be warm. It's just the innate desire of humans. They want to be comfortable. You need hot water. You don't want to take a cold shower. You want it to be comfortable. And this is a fun one, emissions reduction. So I'm not a climate alarmist myself, but I think this is a fun one for the non-Bitcoin inclined people, right? So for a hash rate heating systems to manifest as I've described, it means people that aren't Bitcoiners have to buy them and install them. And how do we do that? You can't really talk about hash price, maybe not eventually. It's difficult to talk about the Bitcoin network, but there are a lot of people out there who would love to get rid of a propane or natural gas heating system and say, you know what, I actually heat on site with carbon-free electric heat. Now, I don't know if they're still burning hydrocarbons downstream at power generation. That's not their problem, but they get the virtue signaling benefit of being able to say, we have carbon-free heat on site. And then from an ideological perspective, you can hide your sat stacking in your utility bill. Non-KYC sats, for those that are interested in that, your utility, your electric bill is technically your Bitcoin exchange, but they don't ask for your social security number. They don't make you upload a photo ID. That's a great incentive for anyone trying to stack sats privately. You also get a stronger network, right? So if more heating systems come online powered by hash rate, the total network hash rate increases, more resilience, more difficult for a 51% attack. And finally, you get physical decentralization of hash rate. And I know the talk of the town is more about digital decentralization of mining pool selection and template construction. But remember, if more operators, each heating system is technically its own little Bitcoin mine, every one of those people or businesses has their own choice to select which mining pool they want. So it's more opportunity for digital hash rate decentralization. And something I like to think about too is what's the cost to switch your mining pool? It's pretty trivial. You log into the firmware, you can swap it. It's not like a huge barrier. So physical decentralization, I think, will help with digital decentralization, which is overall good for the network. I think this rewrites the energy debate. And the reason is it makes hash rate Bitcoin mining much harder to vilify, right? I mean, we've seen the FUD, we've seen the articles in the New York Times, etc. Bitcoin mining bad, consumes energy bad. But how can you say, oh, hey, this technology is bad, shame on you? But then the people in your neighborhood or your business owner, the guy down the street says, wait a second, that thing saves me 30% a month on my heating bill. What the hell are you talking about? I like that thing. So it's much harder to vilify Bitcoin mining. It's like a sly roundabout way to infiltrate all these little corners of society without people even knowing. This is a quote from my upcoming book. And what I'm saying here is to attempt to hinder energy consumption used for mining is to fight against the laws of thermodynamics themselves. So, for anyone who's a little more technical, what I mean by this is that the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, disorder, randomness in the universe, it describes this one directional nature of the universe. Things don't naturally undo themselves. You have to put energy in, right? Resources, coal, oil, hydrocarbons, these dense power sources, they're concentrated. They seek to be in lower energy states to diffuse, to turn into disorder. Heat, right? Why is heat always released from everything? That's the second law of thermodynamics. Any energy transfer releases heat. So, what I'm describing here is that Bitcoin mining effectively takes high dense, energy dense, concentrated resources and it converts them into a lower energy state, heat, and it pays you to do this. So we found a way to monetize the natural tendency of the universe. You cannot fight against that. So I'm saying that Bitcoin heating systems follow this natural law, and it makes no sense to say you can't do that. Energy is meant to be used, not just available to be used. All of you right now are radiating like 60 watts of heat just sitting at these chairs in the room. You can't stop it. And it's not a waste of energy. Yeah, just going back to the framing here, because I have an engineer brain. The first law of thermodynamics, energy, conservation of energy, you can't destroy it, can't create it. What it really means, you can't get rid of it. And the second law about entropy, it's really just that you can measure it. So you can measure its utility. Coal has much more utility. Electricity has much higher utility. It's called quality over heat. You can do more stuff with electricity. You can power your phone. You can mine Bitcoin. You can turn on lights. You can't do much with heat. You can get warm. Depends on the temperature. So this is kind of our guiding principle for hash rate heat reuse. These are our constraints. We can move it around. You can't get rid of it. 1 megawatt of electricity used to mine is 1 megawatt of heat that you have to deal with. Electric heating systems, electric resistive heating systems, Bitcoin miners, circuits, they're effectively 100% efficient. Very, very small amount of energy goes towards noise that you can't even pick up. The hash boards aren't glowing, at least hopefully for you guys, or they're not vibrating back and forth. There's not kinetic energy, I'd hope. So it's effectively 100% efficient at turning that electricity into heat energy. And this gives us that natural conversion that I alluded to on the previous slide. So we're turning resources into heat. We're following that natural tendency of the universe, but we found a way to monetize this. There's now a decentralized protocol that pays you to go find wasted or trapped resources or heat demand and convert energy into that heat and get subsidized with neutral, ethical money. So what will Bitcoin mining do? You guys know a lot of these. It will hunt wasted and trapped resources. It will target heating systems that can benefit from its utility. It increases prosperity for all, be it directly you save 30% on your heating bill, or just allows you to create a stronger network that supports the neutral, inflation-free monetary policy that your family savings are in. And like we talked about, it converts resources into heat plus sats, heat plus sats. I believe this will infiltrate commercial and industrial applications and residential applications as well, with comfort heating demand. So, what's the heat punk movement? Heat punks, all of us focused on hash rate heating, will infiltrate all nooks and crannies of the world. Heat demand is not exclusive to one part of the planet. Everybody needs it in some capacity. Even in warm climates, it's used for other processes, food drying, whatever it may be. Hot water is needed. We're going to hyper decentralize hash rate by doing this. It's going to be all over in all these different applications with direct utility, observable utility value to the consumers that you won't be able to stop it. And we're going to bring mining to heating applications and commercial processes throughout the process. Appliances, excuse me. I think we're going to start to see some changes in how Bitcoin miners are designed and implemented in the future. Here's a little bit of a teaser of who we are. Some photos of, there's Bob's YouTube channel. He's a great educator in the space. And then some other guys in our Heat Punk Telegram group. You guys should reach out to me if you'd like to join. There are many of us trying to solve these problems, from space heaters to garage heaters to Bob designing his whole house like a psychopath to be heated off of Bitcoin, and controlled air heating as well, HVAC. So we're builders, we're innovators, we're educators, we're engineers. Before I wrap up here, what do I think this means for the future of hash rate? Well, a few things. I think we're going to see a change in the business model of Bitcoin mining operations. You know, if I can sell a heating appliance that's powered by hash rate, there's a target market of people across the globe where it can save them money, it integrates easily. Well, maybe I can sell it at or under cost and I keep 10% of the hash rate through the business, but they're not paying the electric bill. The customer's paying the electric bill. So what I just described is a decentralized mining company with no operating expenses, at least from the power perspective. I mean, you could go one layer further and say, oh, all of these customers, they're auxiliary heating systems. Maybe they're used in distilleries or breweries or whatever it may be. They clicked a checkbox when they bought this product and they opted into decentralized curtailment. So now this company could say, I have 10 megawatts in this area code that can shut off. Doesn't matter where they are. It's really, you can get infinitely creative here. We could see normal mining operations that are required to stay on the bleeding edge of efficiency to remain competitive with their locked-in power prices. You know, they could lock in contracts to sell off these miners to heating appliances and applications, companies that will refurbish, retrofit, and modify these devices into heating infrastructure. Then they can depreciate those assets over the whole time period because they know when they're going to sell them and for how much. We're reducing e-waste. We are then turning those old miners, old generation miners, into heating systems where the hash rate heaters, they don't care about the efficiency as much because heat to them is a product. They have two revenue streams, heat and sats. They don't need to be at 13 joules per terahash. And so I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the business model here. Another one, lastly, I'll describe is, you know, right now, when your technician, HVAC or plumber, comes to service your boiler or your HVAC system, your furnace, he's incentivized for that machine to break because he gets paid when it breaks. But what if you had that machine and you gave him 2% of the sats, your own decision, and you said, you're going to get 2%? I don't want to deal with this. Make sure this machine is always healthy and always running. So under this new model, the technicians and tradesmen are incentivized for the machines to keep working. Those are just a few of the fun business models that I thought about. I also think this will change how ASICs and miners in general are designed going forward. I think we're going to see higher temperature chips. You know, we're going to start to hit this brick wall with efficiency improvements, year over year improvements in efficiency, following Moore's law. So what does that mean? Well, if I want to fit more hash rate into literally a given footprint, a shoebox or a 1 meter squared into a warehouse and into an immersion tank, it's no longer an efficiency, a circuit problem. It is a thermal problem. The only way to get more hash rate in that footprint is to run more juice through it, more power. And so a lot more effort will be focused on thermals. Maybe that'll lead to higher temperature chips, higher temperature materials, higher operating temperatures. I also think we're going to start to see, kind of a separation. Right now, why is the control board connected to the heating element? My thermostat to my house is not inside my furnace. I think we will start to see a separation of the heat core, the hash boards, the hot stuff from some of the other sensitive electronics, a total change in form factors, maybe even selling chips directly so that form factors can be, made by different companies for different heating appliances. And another one I think will happen will be specialization in hardware manufacturers. Right now, I buy a Bitcoin miner from 2 Chinese manufacturers. Everything's closed source and it comes and it's 40 pounds in one box. When I build a computer, I don't buy my motherboard, my case, my fans, my cooler, my power supply, and my chip and my RAM all from Intel. My CPU's from Intel, my motherboard's from Asus, my power supply's from Cooler Master, my fans are from Noctua. So I think we're going to start to see specialization. There's going to be companies that come around and make heat sinks and water blocks way better than Bitmain and MicroBT. They can focus on the ASIC fab. So that's kind of my prediction for where we're going to go with hash rate heating. I think it's an indicator that we're very early, which is a good sign for everyone here in the room while you keep stacking sats. And lastly, I think we're going to start to see longer useful lives. I described that plateau in year-over-year efficiency improvements. The total network hash rate will start to plateau as a result. It takes more energy each year to get the subsequent 5% improvement, 5% improvement, etc. And so when we start to see that decay in the increase in difficulty as a result, the machines will last longer. This is good for heating systems. If you spent money to get a hash rate heating system in your business, you don't want to have to upgrade it every 3 years or whatever. Even though you're less sensitive to efficiency in the first place, I think it's a good thing that we're going to start to see longer useful lives for these machines and more ways to implement them other than the normal Bitcoin mining business model. So I got some calls to action as well. I want you guys to connect with us. There aren't many people focused on hash rate heating. A couple of them are here, which is awesome. I get to hang out with these guys. But, our Telegram group, it's got like 25 people in it. I'm trying to identify everybody working on these things, hacking it together. There's problems that need to be solved. So connect with us, talk to us, share your ideas, tell us where we're wrong. This is something that I think is very promising. We're moving forward, and we need all hands on deck. It's an emerging new industry. We need to continue building and problem solving. I'll give you guys a couple of problems here before I wrap up. So, like, for example, someone comes to us and says, I want a heating system powered by hash rate. I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm not too technical. I'm not a DIY guy. Can you build it for me? I'm 5 states over. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, we can help you set that up. But if it breaks, you can't call your plumber or HVAC guy because he's going to have no idea what the hell is going on. Maybe it's better for the business guys because they can pay maintenance techs. They literally have people on payroll, on staff, who it's their job to know how this machine works, right? So that's common, but that's a challenge. We need education, we need certification, we need tradesmen to be in the loop. We have to talk to our electricians, our plumbers, our HVAC guys. We need open source chips. We need chips to be sold directly from the manufacturers so they can be integrated into different form factors. Lots of challenges that need to be solved. And so we have to keep proving to these people that this opportunity and value proposition exists. My last call to action is just to embrace your freedom and cherish energy abundance. Mine for heat when you can, mine for Bitcoin when you can, and embrace it. So that's my presentation. Everybody needs heat. Everyone wants to save, and you can't stop us. Thank you.